Well, that's it, right? I mean, because the reality is your body doesn't work unless you get this stuff. So
Right.
this isn't going to be the end all be all of like maximum fitness.
Right.
But what it is going to do is going to set us up on a baseline because how many times do we see people who are working out pretty hard? They feel like they eat pretty good, or at least they try harder than everyone else they know, and nothing changes. And then we dig in and we're just like we look at these five or six macro and micronutrients, and we're like, oh, well, no wonder, right?
Right.
They don't even have the raw materials to have a optimally functioning hormonal system, metabolic system, etc. We take care of that, and then all of a sudden, whoa, things start to change, and they're not they're like well, I never thought like water and protein could do that. And you're like, well, it sucks that you didn't because that is the foundation.
Yeah, yeah, that's fantastic. Well, let's dig into some more advanced stuff. I'd love to hear
Sure.
your perspective on some different things, okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
The latest two new trends, paleo diet, intermittent fasting, right? So maybe we can dig into those one at a time. I know the paleo diet is just hot as hot can be right now. So
It
what's your
is.
take on the paleo diet? Does it work? Is it functional? Is it effective?
Yeah, well, I mean, if we just strip the name paleo diet off of it, my comfort level soars, right?
Right.
Because the idea is that I mean, there is no such thing as a Paleolithic diet, right? There are people all over the
All over the
world during
world,
that
yeah.
time. They ate what was available, and that was vastly different things. All the practices that sort of modern paleo talks about, things like avoiding grains and legumes and all this type of stuff, is basically misadopted science because we archaeological digs have found grains in the diet of Paleolithic peoples. The problem is it's more difficult to find because the residues of those grains more easily disappear over time. But when they've actually had digs in sites that have been preserved because they were covered in water, they find a whole bunch of foods that early Paleolithic diet uh, practitioners didn't even know existed in the Paleolithic diet. So, I mean, that tag is just kind of, just it's just popular right now to want to go back to this wonderful pastoral existence where age expectancy was 30, I guess, and
Right,
you had
right.
no comforts and conveniences. So let's not wear shoes, and we'll only eat what our Paleolithic ancestors ate, and whatever. So that part, it's catchy, but it's useless from a
Right.
scientific perspective.
Okay.
But the fact of eating like natural foods, eating proteins, eating healthy fats and a wide variety of fats, eating vegetables, eating fruits, less processed stuff. It's awesome. At PN, we call it an ancestral diet. It's
Sure.
close to what our ancestors ate. And the truth is, there's lots of ways to eat like our ancestors ate. There were some ancestors who were strictly plant-based and they only got meat once in a while. There were others that ate almost exclusively meat and fat and got very little in the way of like roughage and vegetables. So I love it. I mean, the real heart of paleo is natural whole foods,
Sure.
unprocessed stuff. It moderates carbohydrates. It eats lots of plants. Eats enough protein. Doesn't shun fats. Love it. Think it's awesome. If people can get closer to that, then they're going to do better.
Yeah.
From there, then it's fine tuning, and that fine tuning can step out of paleo world. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
For example, if you're an endurance athlete, you probably benefit from more
More
carbohydrates.
carbohydrates, yeah.
If you're, we split up things by body types, so somatotypes. So we have what we call sort of I types, which are ectomorphs, tall, lean,
Right.
thin, gravitate towards endurance type activities. V types, which are mesomorphs, which gravitate towards more sort of, they look just athletic. They have the V taper. And O types, which are round types, which are endomorphs. And for each type, we split up our macronutrients a little differently. So for I types, it's higher carb, moderate protein, lower fat. For our O types, it's high fat, low carb, and high protein. And then for our V types, it's a mix, kind of like a zone type of breakdown.
Sure.
So the truth is, you can do paleo in all three of those conditions, or at least eat ancestrally in all three of those conditions. But you just can't get locked into a bunch of corny rules that are made up and have no relevance to history, just because the thing is supposed to be a historical perspective. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's so easy for people to conceptualize a caveman diet. They think of, eating meat and eating vegetables and stuff, but they don't think of like societies and stuff like that. They think of like the guy with the club on his shoulder.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right. And so there's a lot of good to the movement towards eating more natural foods, eating more proteins, fats, less sugars, and processed carbohydrates. And so if you can do that, then you're definitely on the right track. And then once you master that, because really we're talking about real human beings eating, right? Like we're not talking about theory here. When it's time to have lunch, what are you eating? And if you can have more lunches that resemble that, more dinners that resemble that, I think you're going to do better. And then you start to fine tune. You start to ask questions. What are the amounts of food that I should be eating? Should my macronutrients be a little different? Because I see lots and lots of paleo people who aren't lean. You know what I mean? They follow the paleo diet and they're not lean. So there's something more than that.
Sure. I'm so glad you brought up the macronutrient ratios, because that to me is like the second tier that I typically hang my hat on, is understanding what that food consumption is really comprised of and how that affects your hormones and body composition in relationship to that. And one of the things I see, like, when trends come up like paleo, is we see tons of paleo sweet books and paleo treat books. And although I think it's better to move people away from processed junk food to real food junk food, it's still not going to really do them any good for their health or their body composition. So you mentioned kind of the percentages breakdown for different body types. I think that's totally fantastic. Are there any other basic tips that people can use as far as partitioning their macronutrients in order to get better results?
Yeah, well, I think really, like, if you get in the ballpark, that's better than what anyone else is doing. You know what I mean? Really. I mean, it's probably even better than what you can do, because you can't be perfect, right? And when you try for perfect, you do it for like a week, and then it starts to suck really bad, and then you stop doing it, and then you're like far from perfect.
Right.
So probably getting in the ballpark is better than anyone, even yourself, can do, right? And getting in the ballpark means generally, like, again, based on your body type, if you're eating natural, whole, minimally processed foods, most of the time, because again, it cracks me up when, like, people put on their expert hat and they're like, sugar is poison, you should never eat sugar. Anyone who says that is fundamentally a liar, because they're wearing their nutrition hat, and you're supposed to say that when you're a nutrition expert. But I promise they eat sugar. I promise there's some times that they eat sugar. Yeah. So telling people never to eat it is just absurd. I mean, there's no integrity there, right? Because we all get it sometimes, and it's okay. It's not going to kill us if it's moderated, right? So anyway, point being, if you're the I type, right, and you're eating, in that sort of natural ballpark, and you are eating the right amounts, then the breakdown is moderate fats, keep them fairly low, just focus on your essential fatty acids and some of the other various types of fats, and just drive those carbohydrates high. And that assumes you're also doing physical activity, which I'm sure everyone listening to this is. Right. If you're a V type, it's a moderate breakdown. Like, your plate would be a third carbs, a third protein, and a third fat, something like that. And then if you're the O type, you want to drive carbs pretty low, and you want to focus on fats and proteins in that case. And we did a big article on this at Precision Nutrition called "How to Fix a Broken Diet," and it actually breaks this down. Even like in a video or audio podcast, it's hard to actually demonstrate it without like me holding up plates of food and being like, hey, check this out. Right. But we actually took pictures of plates for each body type. So what does it look like if an O type eats higher protein and fat and lower carbs? What does an actual meal look like? What do the portions look like? What does a plate look like? And we did that for each body type, for men and for women. So I think people would get a lot of value out of checking that out. So it's called How to Fix a Broken Diet. If you Google that, you'll find it.
Yeah.
So that'll help people in the way of macronutrients. And that same article actually talks about amount as well. And rather than counting calories and stuff like that, which is the same as I said earlier, if you can get in the ballpark food amount wise, it's better than anyone or even you can do, because
Sure.
counting calories can work for a while. But I've never really met anyone who's like, yep, I've been logging my food intake on Fit Day for 25 years now.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
this is just not sustainable.
You
Like,
need to get
people
a
all,
lifestyle instead of
Yeah.
like a neurotic, condition.
well, that's right. And some people are neurotic. They're numbers oriented, and it's okay, right?
Yeah.
Like, you own that shit. It's all right.
Yeah.
But you're not going to do it for the rest of your life. You're just not. I've been in this field a long time. I've been eating well for a long time. I went through my own write down everything I ate phase and plug in the numbers, and I got all geeky about it. But you can't do it forever. You won't do it forever. So what do you do instead? And for us, we use palm and hand size portion control.
Yeah.
So what we do is we just say a serving of protein is about the size, the thickness, and diameter of your palm. For guys, you generally go with
That's good.
2.
I got a big palm, so
You get a big meal, right? Well, that's it, right? This is the interesting part, because usually palm hand size scales with body size, right?
Sure.
So I work with NFL teams, and the linemen are just these massive dudes, and their hands are 3 of mine, so they should get more protein.
Right.
And small women, the same. They get smaller portions. So we look at that. What's your palm look like for protein? What's your fist look like? That's a serving of vegetables. What's a cupped hand look like? Whatever fits in there is a serving of carbs or starches. And then a thumb is actually a portion of fat. So that could be like mixed nuts, about that portion, or a tablespoon of olive oil is about the size of your thumb. So you can actually start to, when you go out for dinner, look at your meal and be like, oh, all right, I'm supposed to get 2 palms of protein. There's not enough here. Let me order another whatever
Right.
piece of meat. Or there's too much here. Let me save some for later. And you can start to do that. And it's portable. It's individualized to you. And you can actually control your calories, or your food amount, I like to call it, with nothing more than this portable device right here called your hand.
Yeah. See, John, I fell into the camp that was really like hormones. It's all about the hormones. It's not about the calories. I fell into that for a little while. And then I realized, okay, there has to be some degree of portion control or something there. And I interviewed a bodybuilder, and he gave me the best piece of advice. He said, calories, tracking portions is just data. If you don't do it, you don't have data, and so you can't adjust accordingly. And I was like, oh my God, like that blew my mind when I thought of it like that.
Right.
Because so many people nowadays are jumping on the like, oh, it's all about insulin, and then it's all about leptin, and things like that. What's your take on that in terms of like portion control or just hormones, right?